This is a typical morning at Watered Gardens, located at 531 Kentucky Avenue in Joplin. People scatter about the main floor, searching for hot coffee, food, a warm spot, or just a smile after a cold night on the streets.
We have about a third of our community that is at or below poverty level.
James Whitford and his wife run Watered Gardens, a nonprofit Christian-based charity that serves many needs in an attempt to prevent homelessness.
Off and on for about 20 years, I've been used to hitchhike and been on the streets.
Merrie Fairchild has a home now, but comes here because it's on her heart to help others who walk the streets she has walked.
There's a friend that usually comes here. She has cancer in her stomach, and I shake my head in her honor.
Joe Johnson, known as Pastor Joe on the streets, says he now lives in a van so he can minister to the homeless.
Where we're at now is not where we've always been.
Joe has a soft spot for families he meets on the streets.
I'd like to open a home for families because a lot of times, based on some of the services that are provided, families get split up during a time when I believe they really need to pull together.
Like Mary, Joe is quick to offer encouraging words, but each face in this crowd has a different story, a different need. While some needs are more immediate than others, Watered Gardens focuses on bridging the gap between a poverty-stricken individual and the community by supplying basic needs and God's love. Some of those basic needs can be found upstairs, like shoes and clothing. This is the basement of Watered Gardens. It's full of all kinds of furniture items, appliances, anything you might need in a home. Watered Gardens is the only place in Joplin that actually delivers furniture to whoever needs it. A single bathroom is also upstairs, where at least 7 people a day come in off the streets for their only place to shower. And just about anywhere you look inside Watered Gardens are Bible verses and pictures showing examples of Christ caring for his people. This is the upstairs of Watered Gardens. It's where they hold church. Area pastors come in on any given day to help out in this area. 2 services a week. This here is the altar. In these church services, there are 2 buckets on the altar. One says, "I'm done." The other says, "Right now." Anyone in the congregation is encouraged to leave their crack pipes, their bottles of booze, any drug paraphernalia they have, or anything that convicts them.
More than half of the people on the streets in Joplin have some sort of long-term alcohol or substance abuse addiction that they cannot break on their own, and they need help. That
kind of help is not so accessible to the homeless, and most of the agencies that deal with the homeless in the Joplin area do so during business hours only. Most people driving along Main Street in Joplin at night have someplace to go, whether it's home, work, out to eat, or shopping. But if you slow down and take a look, you are likely to come face to face with someone who is homeless. On any given night, statistics show 150 people walk the streets homeless in Joplin. On any given night, almost half of them can have beds at Souls Harbor. It's the other half that the city and community are worried about. So we set out to find out how the homeless handle the streets. While traffic roars up and down Main Street, we see one man in a dark alley digging through a dumpster. Another walks from convenience store to convenience store to check the payphones for change. 8 p.m. on a fortunately mild January night. My photographer Aaron Thompson and myself have roamed the streets of Joplin now for about an hour. Now during the daytime, the homeless can go to shelters in places like Watered Gardens, but these places close after business hours. So where do the homeless go at night when the temperatures drop? They go to parking lots where they sleep in cars. Others just walk the streets. And then there are more who choose a place off the beaten path and away from the traffic to set up for the night.
It's hard being out here, you know. A few weeks ago, it was 6 below zero out here.
Joe Summers sets up camp with his fiancée. She just gave birth a few weeks ago. They gave the baby to a family member. They live at this camp with their dog, which is one reason they don't go to a shelter. Animals aren't allowed. But Joe hasn't always been homeless.
Well, I did have a job, and then I got fired, and then I eventually got evicted, so now I'm out here in a tent.
And this is his life for the past 8 months.
I've been out there. I've had to go fly a sign and panhandle and try to get, you know, food from Souls Harbor, Salvation Army, you know, and I mean, I'd ask anybody, you know, just for labor jobs or anything, and you know, I'm just trying to get back on my feet. A lot of times, you know, I'll be standing there flying a sign and people drive by like, get a job. And I'm like, well, if I could, I would. You know, I've been done put applications in everywhere. And a lot of people kind of roll up their windows and ignore us.
Joe says he has also looked for jobs like everyone else.
I've been putting applications in everywhere, you know. I don't care if it's dishwashing or anything. You know, I'm willing to work. You know, I've been to the Career Center and all the Manpower, People Inc., and Express Personnel, Labor Finders. I don't think they're going to hire me because, I mean, I do got a felony record. And, you know, a lot of places don't, you know, like that on the background. But, I mean, I've been off parole since 2004. I ain't been in trouble. So, I mean, I'm just asking for another chance.
Father, I thank you. I just pray that you just lay your gracious hand on Joe.
According to court records, that felony involved an unlawful possession of a weapon sometime before the year 2000. While a past criminal record is Joe's obstacle, for other homeless in the area, it's drug or alcohol addiction or mental health issues. All of these problems plague a growing number of people who are on the streets in Joplin, and the city is looking to the community to help meet their needs.
But yeah, she used to come up and see me all the time in the subway.
We met Joe Summers during our night on the streets, trying to get an up-close view of the homeless problem in Joplin. Joe sets up camp away from Joplin's Main Street and its traffic.
A lot of people kind of roll up their windows and ignore us.
Joe wants to avoid the stares and slurs. This is where Joe has lived for 8 months. He says he's looking for jobs, but so far, nothing. He gets by sleeping in this tent with his fiancée and getting food from Watered Gardens, Souls Harbor, and the Salvation Army. There are 150 homeless walking the streets of Joplin on any given day. That's twice the number of shelter beds available. But what if there was a place in Joplin where Joe could go? A place that accepts the homeless despite any alcohol or drug use. A place that would offer help to overcome these addictions. A place where anyone could go to get back on their feet. This is just the place that Joplin needs. So says a group comprised of Joplin residents and business leaders who are trying to address the city's homeless problem.
What we are missing in our community, we've got a lot, but what we're missing in our community right now are more permanent supportive housing beds. And we've identified clearly that the housing first approach to homelessness is the most successful thing that's happening in our nation.
James Whitford is part of that group and says a shelter to house the homeless who are trying to get back on their feet is just one part of what the group has been studying over the past year. City Health Director Dan Pekarek insists agencies have to work together in their efforts, but he says there's no cure for homelessness.
I don't believe that 5 years from now we won't have any homelessness in the community. I think we'll always have homelessness in the community, but I think we need to do the best job we can to try to solve that and prevent as much as we possibly can.
Communication is key for these agencies not to duplicate services they offer area homeless.
Certainly the NIMBY issue, which, you know, that's an acronym for Not in My Backyard. People who are in need of help need to be able to see that help is there. And so we know that this is not something that should be on the outskirts of town.
A visible location would also make it easy for the entire community to get involved, whether it's seeking assistance or donating of time. The initial cost is estimated at $3.5 million, which may seem like a hefty price tag to some, but Whitford says the city would pay a much bigger price by doing nothing for the homeless.
You have to take into consideration the nightly cost of incarceration, the emergency room costs that are being eaten by the hospital, the other services that are being utilized in the community because of a person's chronic homelessness.
Whitford and the group don't propose taxpayers foot the bill. Instead, they're turning to individuals and churches.
Is the church going to be able to fund all this? You know, this last week we seen where $200 million was donated by American citizens, just American citizens, to go to Haiti in 1 week. You know, I'm sure that we can definitely do something for this area.
Don Geary is a deacon at Central Christian Center. He met with us during our night on the streets, and he's the one who showed us where Joe lives. He had visited him on Christmas morning, bringing Joe food, gloves, and blankets. Geary plans to continue helping the homeless in the short term, while the group's plan is turned into reality, because reality for people like Joe is living on the streets.
You don't strike me as somebody who's very hard and bitter about it.
No.
Just surviving.
Yeah, I'm just surviving. I mean, you know, you got to do it sometimes. I mean, it could happen to anybody.